Hello guys, this is Link here with patch 5.11 notes. Not really much has happened in this patch as far as it goes. Just going through the list. I'll be talking more about what it's going to affect and who is going to be more popular in this patch. So moving on, Aatrox's Bloodwell passive got lowered. It's basically a buff. It's pretty good because it means that Aatrox can dive more in the later game and his passive will come up, which means he'll res more. It's really good for the mid and late game team fights. Aatrox really isn't that popular already, and he used to be really strong until he got nerfed that one time. But I mean, I guess this is like a good direction and the right step. I personally think that Aatrox needs help in the early game, and if he can get help in the early game, he can, do well in the mid to late. I mean, the problem with Aatrox is that if you fall behind, you're pretty much useless. So, I mean, it doesn't really make sense to buff his mid-late game, but whatever. I guess it's really hard to balance a hero like that because, you don't want to buff someone's early game really hard to the extent that he's always going to snowball no matter what. Ashe got reworked in the last patch, I believe. She was really strong. I think she's really potentially broken. Her Q scales really well, and this is really nice. I mean, I guess it's nice that they nerfed it against turrets and it doesn't work on turrets. Before you can just kind of push really fast with it. I kind of wish that they didn't touch that, and rather they'd touch the damage instead of not allowing it to work, because I think it's really nice to be able to push with Ashe. I guess they don't want to give Ashe too much power in terms of being able to push, being able to slow, being able to initiate. So I guess it's reasonable. Volley's damage got nerfed, and it's a pretty significant nerf in terms of the early game. 20 base damage is a lot, and you can see that it got nerfed in the level 2, level 3 ranks, and level 5 it's still strong. So Ashe in the mid game is still pretty good. The Hawk Shot I think is probably one of her most underrated, if not one of the best spells in the game, because of the fact that you get charge and it's 0 mana and it's global. I mean, you can kind of see everything. So it kind of made sense that they had to nerf the vision radius. I wish they kind of nerfed the cooldown or the uptime rather, because it's really affected by cooldown reduction. And not only that, it's global range, right? So it's like map hacks. What's the point of having clairvoyance, But I guess they want to keep Ashe unique in the fact that she's able to provide so much utility. So in terms of that, she's really strong, because in competitive play, utility AD carries are actually really good. You look at Sivir, you look at Ashe, they can do so much, and they can pressure lanes, they can initiate fights. They're basically the people who can change the game. I mean sure, you can say otherwise with Jinx, who might hit 6 items, but the way Ashe and Sivir work is that they're playmakers, so they can actually do things. It provides more options for teams. So Bran got a quality of life buff, I guess. It'll just seek out a different target instead of fizzling out on the spot. I mean, I guess that's nice. Bran kind of needs a buff because he's really hard to play. He has a lot of skill shots, and the fact that he has skill shots is probably going to hold him back because there are just better champions than him. I mean, you can look at Ryze, right? Ryze doesn't need to hit his skills in order for him to do damage. He can miss his Q, but it doesn't matter. He's going to do 1 billion damage with his W, E, and R. Bran's not really the case. I mean, you can still do a lot of damage, but at the end of the day, you're going to have to hit your W, and your R is going to have to hit at least twice to do something. Caitlyn is going to see a lot more play, I think, in this patch. It's really hard to buff Caitlyn because she's really strong early game, and if you make her too strong early game, or if you make her scale really well in the mid game, she's going to have she's going to be strong early, mid, and late, right? Right now, before this patch, she was kind of strong early, really weak mid, kind kind of okay as she hits her 3rd and 4th items, and really strong on the 6th item. And the fact that they changed it so that headshot now ignores 50% of the target's bonus armor, that's really huge. Like, that means that you can pretty much go IE, BT, PD, and on headshots, and you crit on that headshot, you're gonna do so much damage. Like, it's better than Last Whisper. So I think the build-up for Caitlyn is gonna be really strong. I actually think that Hurricane might be a potential build on her because it means more headshots, which means, you know, more. You don't have to go Last Whisper anymore because effectively, if you have IE, PD, you know, BT, and Runas, you're gonna be hitting 3 people, potentially lifestealing more, and you're attacking way faster, and your headshots are actually gonna do damage. So I actually think that Hurricane might be a viable build as the 4th item on her. So they fixed some bugs on her W, and then they buffed her ulti, I believe. So now her ulti won't like fizz out. Like, as soon as it cast, it's going to pretty much guarantee that you're going to be able to hit your ulti. At least that's what I think. That's what it means. Which is a big deal because if people walk out of fog or like flash out before, you can like flash out at the very beginning of the animation, and then Caitlyn's ulti won't go off. She'll like cast her animation and then like do nothing. So Ekko was released last patch. I really think Ekko is super broken, and if nobody has seen my tweet, like, he basically has wave clear, speed, you know, dash, slow, stun, heal, wave. Okay, I guess I already said wave clear. Like a ridiculous AP ratio of 4. He gets the speed up for himself. Yeah, it's pretty nuts. Like, he needs to get nerfed. Like, his ulti costed 0 mana, which doesn't make any sense. Like, the W itself is already 30 mana, and like, it's a really good thing that they nerfed it, because on champion like Ekko, he needs to be really. The way you balance him, I think, is you have to be really smart with your skills with Ekko, right? Like, that's how it should be. Like, you land your W in a great spot, and you land your Q in a great spot, and then you're gonna get rewarded for that. You know, it's like, oh, you position yourself in a way where you can ulti backwards, you know, where you can chrono break backwards, and then you're gonna kill everyone. Like, that's how Ekko should kind of be. But the fact that Ekko has 0 mana cost and relatively low cooldowns means that, well, it doesn't really matter. You know, Ekko's just gonna spam his skills, and then if it hits, it hits. If it doesn't hit, then oh, my skills are up in any second. And the fact that he can spam it because they're low mana cost again is also a big part of it. So I really think that they should nerf that part, because it's really easy for Ekko to wave clear. He's super mobile. He's really hard to gank. The W is like the most craziest zone I've ever seen, I think, because Zhonya's triggers off of the W, which means that you can get a stun off. So I don't know. They need to nerf him more, or like they need to touch his damage. They need to remove some part of like his skill. So we'll see. Oh, I mean, it's a step in the right direction, but it's definitely something that Riot needs to look at more, I think. Hecarim has been constantly really strong in the top lane, and that's because, well, TP is such a big part of the meta right now, and because of home guard boots, you're able to one-shot somebody, especially a squishy, and, well, you know, kill them. So they nerfed his passive and his devastating charge, and it's just meant so that he doesn't do as much damage. Like, I'm kind of sad that they didn't really include too many numbers, but pretty much just know that it's like a nerf in terms of damage. But in terms of like how strong he is, I still think he's pretty strong. I know that the last patch where they nerfed his mana cost to his Q was pretty big, and that's a really big nerf to his laning. So hopefully I feel like Hecarim's slowly gonna get into a good spot, because I know he has a lot of trouble versus heroes like Gnar and Maokai. I guess he beats Maokai later on. Rumble's a really skill matchup. I think Rumble is really strong right now too. In any case, they changed Jayce. Now he has 3 skills, and they basically did the Nidalee on Jayce, which is kind of like sad, you know. I really liked being able to level up 4 spells, and leveling up 3 spells is, I guess it's nice. I guess they buffed it so that now there's level 6, so it's pretty. I would say that this is a buff because basically now you can get a higher, you know, Q damage. You know, you can get a lower hypercharge, and I don't know. I'm not sure how to think about this, but I mean, it's already automatic that your transform is going to get hit, so it's pretty much just a straight up big buff to him, and I'm not sure how it's going to affect him. But I know like Lightning Field doing level like 400 damage, you know, like your Q doing 320. That basically means that you're going to be able to clear the backline. You know, you're going to be able to clear waves really quickly, and that's something really nice to have. And I can definitely see Jayce being played a lot more, especially because a lot of the AD mids have kind of been nerfed in the past. Like you look at Zed, you look at Talon, they've been nerfed. And you know, Jayce was previously nerfed, and now he got rebuffed while the others got nerfed. So maybe Jayce can kind of deal with the constant Azir, Cassio meta right now. I'm not really sure how it's going to work because I really think Azir and Cassio needs nerfs. I'm pretty sure Cassio got nerfed already in the last patch with her mana cost, which is probably why she's seeing less play. But I'm pretty sure they're really strong. But in any case, I think Jayce is going to see play as well. So that's a good thing. They nerfed Cat again, really randomly. I guess it's because like low elo cats are just owning and she just snowballs out of control. Shimpo actually did a lot of damage in team fights. People actually don't realize that. But it's a really big part of like how she can get kills. And every damage on Cat really helps because I mean you've seen those scenarios if you're playing Cat where they live with 1 HP, and well, now you know why. It's because Shimpo is going to do 20 less damage and the ratio is going down a lot. And also ludens is also going down too. So Cat's going to have, like, Cat got a really big nerf this patch because of ludens being nerfed as well. Kha'zix buff, I mean, pretty straightforward. Isolation radius decreasing, which means more damage for Q. That's good for Kha'zix's, even though he has like the shittiest time in the jungle and lane. The biggest part of this patch, I think, is the LeBlanc nerf. LeBlanc was pretty much the answer to heroes like Azir. She can kind of deal with Cassio, but it's a really skill matchup. Before Zed versus LeBlanc was, I'd say like 60-40 for Zed, but now it's like 70-30, I think. The fact that LeBlanc's W, the missile speed, went down by 300, it means that in teamfights you can like flash it on reaction really easily. Like, especially as well as in lane. For example, you're laning versus an Azir as LeBlanc. LeBlanc W's onto the Azir. Now Azir has that much faster of a time to EQ or QE, right? And if Azir knocks LeBlanc up during her distortion, it basically means that she's useless. Like, she lost. Like the way LeBlanc's got off trades is to distortion, and then they can't dodge it because it's so fast. But now it's so much slower, so it's going to be a really big problem. A lot of like lanes like before where example is Ori versus LeBlanc. LeBlanc can W and pretty much W back instantly, and the Ori has to be really perfect or on time with her QWE combo. But now she has that much more room to pretty much, you know, not be on top of it and still be able to trade effectively. So it's a really big nerf to LeBlanc. The other nerf, the other huge nerf is the missile width getting nerfed on chains, which means less picks. And now it just means that LeBlanc needs to play a lot more smarter, a lot better, and land those skill shots. And I kind of wish like they let distortion, the missile speed, still stay at 1600, but I'm not sure. I guess it kind of makes sense to replicate both the spells. But it's straight up a big nerf. And I guess the good thing is that they nerfed her damage, but I can definitely see this killing LeBlanc. And that's kind of like depressing because LeBlanc is such a fun champion to watch. And obviously she's not so fun when she's like super snowballed, right? But I think she was in a really good spot where you have to be really good on LeBlanc to get plays going. And I feel like a lot of people, a lot of the lesser teams, they try to get LeBlanc going and they have a really hard time. And even then, those games are really fun to watch because there's a LeBlanc who's trying to assassinate people, you know? LeBlanc's like one of those champions that I wish, like, alongside with Ahri, that they were always in the meta because they're really fun to watch. But goodbye, LeBlanc. It's time. It's time indeed to say goodbye. So Malphite, they moved his passive. They changed it from getting attack damage and splashing to additional armor. So I guess that's pretty good. They changed it so that when he presses W, he gets additional physical damage. And the way I see it is I believe that if he just gets an additional 85, that means that crit is going to scale off of him, which means Trinity is actually like not so bad, I think. Like Trinity Force. And I know like Wicked builds it, but I mean I don't think this is gonna really change that much. But I think actually no, this is gonna be a huge buff actually, because like the W is going to be really strong, the W passive. Because before you had to press W in the middle of a team fight at the right time. But I don't know if this is the right way to buff Malphite, because Malphite's one of those champions where if he gets a little too strong, he's unkillable, and it's really frustrating to play versus. So I think this change can get Malphite to get played. So the Ori change is really I really dislike it. Basically what happens is you get out of cooldown, say your ball's on someone, and then you go out of range. When the ball snaps back to you, it takes 0.75 seconds for you to press ulti. And I think that's really bad, because now you have a 0.25 second window where you can't press your ulti anymore, right? So that's a really big nerf. It's also a buff to really terrible Orianna players who will press their ulti after 0.5 seconds after God of the leash range. So I'm not sure how to think about it. It's basically saying, good Orianna players, fuck you. It doesn't matter. Like, this is straight up a nerf to good Orianna players, and it's a buff to really bad players. And I think that's wrong, but that's what Riot wants to do. Ryze. Hey, passive. They did a bug fix. Alright, cool. They didn't nerf anything about Ryze. Ryze is super OP. That's great. Are these really patch notes? I don't even know. Wow, amazing. Ryze is super OP right now. If you guys didn't see any of the VODs, replays, LCS games. Sejuani nerfed again, I believe. So I guess they didn't do it last patch. Alright. Yeah, okay. They nerfed it. Alright, cool. Shen buffs. Huge Shen buff, getting MR per level. And then the passive going down, which means more energy return, which is really huge. Especially the fact that it starts at level 7. That's 1 second, faster. That's really important. Because again, every auto reduces his key strike, which is really important. And the shadow dash going down energy is super huge, because that means more feints in the middle of a team fight and more dashes. I'm not sure if this is what is going to allow Shen to get back into the meta, but Shen is going to have definitely a much better time versus Rumble, because previously he didn't have MR per level versus a Rumble, and he was melee. So we'll see. Shen is really interesting. Shyvana, W now does extra damage. I don't know if you noticed, but Riot has been slowly buffing Shyvana, and Shyvana kind of saw play in Korea and LPL and China. The fact that they keep on buffing her, I can definitely see her being played more, and I think that they want Shyvana to be played, and I think Shyvana is playable right now, but everyone is kind of like into the playmaking too much instead of the farming, which kind of makes sense because it's much more easier to win by making plays with Rumble or Hecarim and like Gnar and you know Malphite compared to Shyvana, who just fucking runs at you and farms, right? So we'll see. Sivir nerf. It's not too big of a nerf. Sivir is basically just gonna still be played. It's a reasonable nerf because her ulti's fucking broken. And yeah, I mean, she's really facial. The second biggest nerf of this change, I think, of this patch was Ludens Ekko. This was the item that was supposed to replace DFG. And honestly, people have been rushing it first, which is kind of what was like DFG, right? Obviously, it's a lot less burst, and it's a lot more poke. I really thought Ludens was a really good item because it also scaled into late game. Maybe it was too strong, and I think it's right for them to nerf the AP ratio. But I think that they should have either nerfed the AP ratio, or they just nerfed the stack cast, right? Like the fact that that's a really huge nerf, basically, if it's going from 20 to 10. Like before, you can like cast like 5 spells and or like 4 spells and run around. Now you have to cast like 7 to 8 spells and then run around. So I'm not sure if this is like the right nerf. I think it's the over nerf, but I'm not sure. It's still going to be strong because it's still going to give you that initial burst damage, right? That a lot of people really like to see. So I don't know. We'll see. Like, yeah, we'll see. But that's pretty much it, I think. The rest is Twisted Tree Line. Nobody cares about that. Diamond 5 LP games, that's nice. Champion Mastery, that's nice. Nerfs are bug fixes. Cool. That doesn't really mean anything because there's going to be more bugs coming out afterwards. But yeah, that's pretty much it. This was the patch 5.11 notes. Thanks for watching. I'll be doing 5.12 when it comes out. Bye bye.